Listen, I can see the light of day, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering how the world keeps on spinning, kinda scared of living when it unfolds. Hard to see the light when everything is dying, waiting for the clear. Thankful I'm alive, but terrified of dying. But hey, I'm still here. Is it that sometimes I like it when I lose control? There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light of day, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away.
You're the night sky trying to make me see your stars, but the dark gets so lonely. Now I see violet, I can feel silence, and the dark's all that I see. When your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound, I'll find violet in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. Be my night sky.
closest starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep, I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven.
I'm picking up audio on my other Skype account when I talk. But I'm not picking up your audio.
And I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye.
There we go.
Okay, my headset's on. Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me try to fix this. Can you hear me? Place the MacBook Air speakers. Her speakers are picking it up. Alright, give me a second. No, I mean, I just won't use my headset. I'll just talk to you like this. It's fine with me. Yeah.
Yeah, just mute yourself if you're not talking. But I think you do that anyway. So.
Yep. Keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. This gravity, 'cause I don't wanna say goodbye.
Welcome into hardcore Penn State. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Corey Listoki, and we have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to be talking final thoughts on Ohio State. Sammy from Hoosier Huddle is coming on to talk about Indiana. Potentially some quarterback controversy, as if we haven't had any all season. And maybe a little bit of some recruiting updates. We got a fan question related to that as well later in the show. So welcome on in. Let's get right into it. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How are you doing today, Sean?
Feeling great on this hump day, Corey. How are you?
Feeling fine, drinking wine, doing time.
I knew that was in that bottle.
Yeah, no, it's just a big-ass glass of water. Sorry about some of the technical difficulties. We started a couple minutes late, but we are here and we are thriving. So just because to update people that didn't know, we had a bonus episode come out this morning, and that was because Bill DeFilippo did such a great job with us, host from Roar Lions Roar. He was a Big Ten guest picker, and he did such a great job that it was an hour and a half. We're just going to make it its own episode instead of trying to make this a monster episode. So that's what we did. And so that's already out. So you're looking for the Big Ten Pick'em guest picker and all that stuff where we go through all of our games. That is where that is. Bill is fantastic, and you should it's more than just the picks. I mean, it's an hour and a half talking about Penn State football. We go into Drew Aller and versus Sean Clifford. We talk wide receiver room. We talk Ohio State, obviously. A lot's going on there. So you should definitely listen to that. It was fun to record. Bill was fantastic. So thank you for him.
Yeah, it was a cool conversation. I was happy because I've seen him on Twitter for years and years. So it's cool to talk to him over the pod.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. It was smooth. So if you haven't listened to that yet, really highly recommend that you do. Later in the show, actually not too later in the show, in about 30 to 35 minutes, we will have Sammy from Hoosier Huddle coming on to break down some of the Hoosiers and what to expect in that matchup. So that'll be a good time there. I guess I can just throw up the schedule. That'd probably be the easiest way for people on YouTube to see what we have going on. There it is. Penn State NFL we'll get to in a second. Final thoughts on Ohio State. We'll have some film we'll briefly go through. There's a couple plays, Sean, that I was up late last night watching the film, and a couple of them really upset me just because there's a couple like, oh my goodness, it was that just a game of inches from potentially a different game. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, the pick'ems already happened. That's in the bonus episode that came out today. I think we have 2 fan questions, and I got 2 bold predictions. Again, you can tweet us at Hardcore PSU FB. We do have 1 5-star review we'll have to throw in there at some point. And then we'll get into our predictions. Sound like a good plan, Sean?
Sounds like a plan, Stan.
I will say, people that are curious, Bill took Ohio State, Minnesota, Purdue, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan in his games this week, if anybody wanted to know. And we'll get to his final score when we talk about our predictions. But if anybody was curious about that. Let's get right into PSU and the NFL, and hopefully the right one pops up here. I have 2 on my little dashboard thing, so that could be interesting. Another big week, though, Sean, for the alums, if you will, in the NFL, Penn State Nittany Lions. Micah Parsons, first career touchdown. He never got one at Penn State. He was something he always wanted. Kind of a freak play. No one touched him. He just gets up and runs it in the end zone. I mean, it was harder than that, but Micah Parsons in the end zone, just adding to what has already been a really good year for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I feel like we don't talk about Micah enough, maybe. We focus a lot on, we talk about everybody, but Micah is probably the best defensive player in football. He's better than TJ Watt. Sorry, Steeler fans. The man just is. I mean, he makes plays all the time. He does such a great job getting after the quarterback, and there you go. I don't think he scored a touchdown at Penn State, if I remember correctly. And he's also, ironically, somebody who wanted to play both sides of the ball at Penn State because he was such a good running back. So cool to see him get in the end zone. And then, you look at, speaking of getting in the end zone, Mike Gesicki. He will not be traded at the trade deadline by the Miami Dolphins. I think part of it is because the Dolphins have found a role for him. He's turning out to be a very good complement to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and being that big red zone threat that we all know he could be. So that was really cool to see during the game. He had the go-ahead touchdown, and the Dolphins' victory over the Detroit Lions.
There's our Dolphins update for the day. You know what? I think, Sean, this was very smart by the Dolphins. I think it would have been, historically, if they would have looked back on trading Gesicki in 5 years, I think they probably would have got as much as they probably would have wanted for him. And so I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be happy they held on to him. Watch him not sign, because he was a franchise tag, right?
He's tagged right now, yeah.
Yeah, so watch him just not sign at the end or something. But no, I think it was a smart decision. And also, you got Sean, this isn't a Dolphins podcast, but the Dolphins are in the running for the Super Bowl, whether people realize that or not. You don't really, I think, want to be giving away pieces that you might want at some point right now. So.
Right, yeah, they just traded for Bradley Chubb, and yeah, they have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl this year. So we'll at least have Gesicki till the end of the year, and I think it's a smart move on their part. I don't know if he's still with them next year, but he's going to be very, very valuable down the stretch.
Yeah, that's enough Dolphins talk. Jaquan Brisker, another sack, 9 tackles. I saw that. I'm pretty sure he's tied for. I want to say passes defended. I think it's passes defended by safeties. And then I want to say he's leading the NFL in tackles by defensive back for a rookie. And I saw he's played pretty much every snap except for 5 or something stupid like that for the Bears. So yeah, he's doing some good stuff there. Miles Sanders, only 9 rushes. As a fantasy owner, I was a little concerned, but he had a touchdown. Did decent for me. And how about Yetur Gross-Matos? Haven't talked about him very much lately. 6 tackles. He gets his first half sack of the year. He had 3 sacks last year. So It's good to see YGM get involved. Jordan Stout, 53-yard average punting, 2 inside the 20, which is something maybe Penn State wished they had a little bit better of a punting situation against Ohio State. Pat Freiermuth has been steady Eddie. I feel like every week we were like Pat Freiermuth for approximately like 5 to 6 catches and like roughly 60 to 75 yards like every single week, Sean.
Yeah, he's, like you said, he's steady Eddie. I wish he wasn't a Steeler because, spoiler alert, I do not like the Steelers, but it's good to see him having a lot of success. Jaquan Brisker, yeah, he actually leads all rookie defensive backs and tackles, and like you said, he's tied for the most among safeties and sacks. So, I mean, again, we told you, like, this guy's going to be really good. And you got Nick Scott on there, and I think all Penn State fans are really proud of Nick Scott and the player he's become. I didn't really know if he had it in him until he got to the Rams. I liked him in college, but I didn't know if he'd be a starting safety in the NFL. I always kind of penciled him in as a special teams guy, but he's really, really shown that with hard work, some grit, and of course talent never hurt anybody. You could make it in the NFL. So really proud of Nick Wiggle Scott.
Yeah, and 12 Lionheart just asked for the Pick'em link on YouTube, and that has just been sent over. So that is there for you guys to do the Pick'em if you haven't. Yeah, I think everyone else can kind of read all the other ones on. I don't need to go through all of them, but yeah, nice to see Nick Scott do some good things and continue to stay in the NFL. And not just stay in the NFL, but be a starter in the NFL. Okay, we got about, what was that?
Yeah, he started in the Super Bowl and
Yeah,
a Super Bowl
exactly.
champion, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's got a good knack for the football too. He's been around the football quite a bit, so that's also good to see. I think we already have Sammy here, so that's actually good because I was like, oh, should we go to whatchamacallit? Should we go to Sammy? And Sammy is here, so let me clean this up a little bit. Sammy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Well, welcome
Nice.
on to Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey and my co-host Sean. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys?
Very good, very good. Yeah, I guess we'll just wait for Corey to get everything cleaned up there, and we'll be starting soon.
Yeah, Sammy. So I guess for people that don't know a lot about Indiana, obviously Penn State fans have been pretty focused on Ohio State, and a lot of fans probably haven't really started to turn their attention to Indiana yet. Some probably never will. So can you just give us kind of a recap of the season so far, where everything stands? And just so you know, Sammy, you can't have bigger Tom Allen fans than Corey, I'm Corey, Sean and I. We're huge Tom Allen fans. So just keep that in mind as you break down the Hoosiers for us.
Well, the season started off well, 3-0. You have a win over Illinois, who is now ranked 16th in the college football playoff poll. And, depending who you ask, does that count as a top 25 win since they weren't ranked at the time? Does somebody TCU beating Oklahoma count as a ranked win? But IU started the season off 3-0. They've lost 5 straight, some in heartbreaking fashion, others just beat by better teams. The slide started against Cincinnati with a road trip to Cincinnati, where IU lost 45-24. It was closer than the score indicated in the fourth quarter, and a garbage time touchdown gave you the 21-point spread there. You go to Nebraska in a game that, it's on the road, it's in Lincoln at night, but that's not an excuse. You're playing a team who has a new coach. IU was missing DJ Matthews and Cam Camper, their top 2 receivers that game. And it showed. IU put up 14 points on offense. They scored another touchdown on defense, but a late, a fourth quarter bomb over the head of a true freshman safety ended their hopes at a win there. And then you go, you come home against Maryland, you knock Talia Tungavaloa out of the game, and you lose there. You had a fourth quarter lead with about 9 minutes to go on the ball, and you can't hang on to it. And then you go to Rutgers and have a 14-0 lead and lose 24-17 in a game that really you can't lose that game. So you're sitting at 3-5. Bowl eligibility isn't off the table yet officially, but you look at Indiana's last 4 games. It's Penn State at home, at Ohio State, at Michigan State, and then Purdue at home. So while it's not officially out of the question that bowl eligibility is there, it's coming to a close. That window's closing real quick.
Yeah, and like looking at Indiana, they've had some bad luck with injuries and with Cam Camper and everything. What do you like when you lose 5 straight games? I mean, that's over a month of football that you're just losing. Like, what do you think you could pinpoint as the reason or one of the main reasons why that why they just keep losing?
Well, it's nothing clicks at the same time. One game, the defense will play well, and the offense doesn't. The next game, the offense plays well, but defense and special teams doesn't. Then you get a special teams touchdown, and the offense doesn't play well, and the defense, I think they were on the field for almost over 40 minutes against Rutgers, and you can't ask your defense to do much more than that. Holding them to 24 points, and Connor Bazelak threw a pick 6. So really, you held them to 17 points. So math is hard at 9:15 at night, but it's the little things. There's they had Maryland stopped, with setting up a 4th down in their own territory. 6-7 minutes left in the game. They're probably punting you the ball, and you get an unsportsmanlike taunting penalty, which is honestly a soft call, and you probably don't call it there. And, as I was watching Ohio State, Penn State last week, see Marvin Harrison Jr. just spike the ball a couple times in front of people's faces, and you're like, hold on, you're going to call other people for that, but you're not going to call them. But, we could have a whole nother podcast on Big Ten refs.
Yeah.
So
that's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's little things like that. A holding penalty knocks you out of field goal range in the first half at Rutgers to try to go up 3 scores. And injuries. Cam Jones, who's Indiana's best linebacker, gets hurt. He's probably out on Saturday. And it adds up. And Cam Camper tears his ACL against Rutgers. And you're missing your best offensive lineman. He tore his ACL against Illinois. IU did make a coaching change in terms of Darren Hiller was let go after the Michigan game, I believe. And then Rod Carey, who is the head coach of Temple, Northern Illinois, has taken over. And that unit actually has been playing better, but it couldn't have played worse. But they've been better. So it's just, it just snowballs. And especially coming off a 2-10 season where IU lost, I believe, 7 in a row to end the year. And it just, you can't get a break. And that just mentally just hurts.
Sammy, this is just, I think, a good opportunity. We have Mark Creeder on YouTube right now, and he just commented. I don't think he realizes that you're on right now. And he said, I admit this sounds weird, but this could be the most depressing 10-2 ever for Penn State if they win out the rest of the year. And he says, so close yet so far away from ascending the peak. And I'm just curious, Sammy, could you put it in perspective for Penn State fans that are talking about being disappointed with a 10-win season and just kind of maybe run through your thoughts on a comment like that when your team right now is sitting at 3-5?
Oh, look, I'm a Yankees fan, so I get it. I understand it. People out here are like, how are you complaining? You went to the ALCS. You haven't had a losing season since like 1992 and things like that. Well, expectations are different. To put it into perspective, IU's never won 10 games in a season. They've beaten Penn State twice. They haven't beaten Ohio State since like 1988. They've beaten Michigan once since 1987, and things like that. Now it's, comparing apples and oranges a little bit. But yeah, I get his feeling. I wrote about that a little bit today. Was that it's a ho hum 10 wins. It could be a ho hum 10-win season for Penn State, but you lose to Michigan and Ohio State again. I understand it, but as an Indiana person, I don't feel sorry for you. And things like that. I don't. I would give a lot for a 10-win season and things like that, but it's it's part of the sport, and I think that's kind of where the sport's kind of going downhill a little bit. I love college football more than every other sport, that baseball, but the fact that you can't enjoy a 10-win season, I think it's taken away from it. And this whole focus on getting a national title or bust and things like that, I don't like it, because look, a team like Indiana, you're not going to win a national title. There's no way, especially if the Big Ten keeps these crazy divisions and things like that. But you know what you get out of it? You went and beat a rival in Illinois who, I wish we played more, because it's an hour and a half drive. It's a rivalry in basketball, and it should be a rivalry in football. You beat Purdue. It's those local rivals, just like Penn State and Pitt, and some other rivals. I wish the sport would go back to that, because that's what made the sport special. There were those regional rivalries, and it was, you have bragging rights over your neighbor. If you won a national title, fantastic, great. But it's those those things, and yeah, I understand why 10-2 would be disappointing, because you didn't get one of those big two. But don't take it for granted.
Yeah, no, I think that the stuff about the local rivalry is an interesting point. I do want to ask you, Connor Bazelak, quarterback, comes in, takes over the starting job from Missouri originally, did some good things out there, just had some turnover issues. Him and Shivers, the running back from Auburn, have been really good transfer portal guys. You guys hit the transfer portal extremely hard this last year. What are your thoughts on Connor Bazelak to this point in the season?
Not great, Bob. He has made some big time throws, and then he has had some throws where you're like, dude, what are you doing? And I think that's where it comes into play. If you dive into the stats a little bit more on Connor Bazelak, he's turning the ball over way too much, and things like that. It's not working out well. And if you go into the split stats and losses, he's completing 54.1% of his passes, which in Walt Bell's offense with a lot of short throws, it needs to be upwards of 60. 7 touchdowns is fine, but he has thrown 7 interceptions. And a couple of those interceptions, have gone off receivers' hands and really aren't his fault. But you can't throw 7 interceptions. In the wins, he's thrown 5 touchdowns and 2 picks. And, there have been drives where he looks like a world beater, and then he comes back and there's non-competitive throws. So there is a little bit of a quarterback controversy in Bloomington. If you haven't heard, if listeners haven't listened to Tom Allen's press conference this week, you will find out who's the starter along with us. Whenever warm-ups start on Saturday. But there's definitely something brewing in Bloomington with the quarterback situation. Guys, you need to take a look at Dexter Williams. He was a 3-star recruit a couple years ago under Kalen DeBoer. He's had 3 years in the program. If you guys remember Trey Roberson, he's kind of like that. He has a solid arm, can run. People have described him as kind of a more accurate Trey Roberson, which is an Indiana guy. Fantastic. I'll take that all day. And then you have Jack Tuttle, who announced his intentions to go to the transfer portal, but sticking with the team this year as a team captain. He has experience. He's started games against big teams. So, it might be a time of transition there. But Connor Bazelak has been, I would say, disappointing.
Yeah, because you look at his yards per his yards per completion. It's 5.5. I mean, so it's not like they're airing it out, and especially when you consider they're only completing 55% of the passes. I mean, that's just not good enough. I did want to ask you about Tom Allen calling the defense. Are you a fan of that, or do you? Because when Bill O'Brien was here, he called the offense. Do you like the head coach being involved with calling the defense, or do you wish he would take a back seat?
Well, my opinion of that changed from the beginning of the season till now. I thought getting Tom Allen back as a play caller in the defense, and he was the play caller there in 2017, 2018. But to get back to the defense that they had under Kane Womack in 2020 and 2019, I thought that was the way to do it. Was have Tom Allen, but the defense hasn't been what we expected. They haven't created the takeaways, which, if you go back to that 2020 season, I know Penn State fans don't want to do it, but we're going to go back to the 2020 season. Indiana had like 28 takeaways in 8 games, and that created a lot of opportunities for an offense that really wasn't that great. Even though Michael Penix put up big yards, you look at that Penn State game, he did basically nothing until like the final 6 minutes of that game. I know he had the big game against Ohio State, but that defense really carried that team and set up the offense with good field position. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's a good defensive coach. He definitely turned around Indiana's defense when he came in as defensive coordinator. But I think you have to let Chad Wilt maybe take over a little bit more, and you be the head coach of the team, and make adjustments if you need to, because it really hasn't, when it's come down to it, defense hasn't made plays that it needs to make. So
Yeah, I do. Give us one guy on defense, one guy on offense that Penn State fans should know of. Somebody that maybe Penn State fans don't already know, but someone that, hey, they're watching on TV, they want to look smart in front of their friends. They know somebody that the Hoosiers have on offense and defense that they should be paying attention to.
I think they need on defense. True freshman Deshaun McCullough. He's IU's highest rated recruit ever. If you're into that sort of stuff, but he is super athletic, super fast. As a true freshman, he's going to be the best player on the field. And he's not physically developed as he will be, but his instincts are there, and he's always there to make a play, whether that's 30 yards downfield, breaking up a pass, or getting a sack or tackle for a loss when they need it. And he kind of plays IU's outside linebacker, defensive end hybrid, and he's athletic enough to go cover wide receivers and tight ends 30 yards downfield. He's the guy to know on defense. On offense, Jalen Lucas, number 12, true freshman. He's a little guy. He's fast. He's explosive. They're going to need to get the ball in his hands a lot. He returned a touchdown, kickoff for a touchdown against Rutgers. He has had a number of 30 or 40-yard kickoff returns this year, and whenever he gets the ball in space, he makes the first 2 guys miss and get upfield. He's their big play potential guy on offense.
Gotcha. Is there when you're looking at this Penn State team, is there what stands out to you? What scares you as far as what maybe Indiana struggles with, or what's keeping you up at night when you're thinking about this game on Saturday?
I'd say the defense, and then Parker Washington on offense. The defense, every Penn State defense that's come into Bloomington, they're tough. They play hard. They tackle well. They're fundamentally sound, and they're just going to beat the heck out of you. And that always scares you. Can you put up enough points to beat them? Probably not. On offense, I watched Parker Washington last week. Unbelievable. The kid could make every play on the field. He's tough as nails, and things like that. And IU has had trouble this year covering those quick, deep wide receivers.
Yeah, Parker Washington's definitely come on at the right time. Is Taiwan Mullen, is he healthy? Is he playing right now? Is he? I don't know if there's any issues with him over the bye week. They had another week. Is he ready to rock and roll?
He's playing. He's not playing well, but he's playing. He was injured last year, and it was obvious he was injured. He hurt his ankle. And he couldn't move laterally. Um, I mean, he should be 100%. Everything that I know, the points say he's 100%, but maybe he's not mentally there or whatever. He has not been the lockdown corner that he was in 2020, and that's another big issue on this defense is that if you can't trust your corners to play man, you're not going to get a pass rush because you can't blitz guys and things like that, and so you're stuck between a rock and a hard place there.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's something that Penn State ran into against Ohio State in the second half. So we are very familiar with that. It was funny you brought up McCullough because all the way back in, I don't know when we did Indiana, Sean, back in the summer sometime, we brought up McCullough as one of the guys to pay attention to in the years to come. So definitely excited to watch him play. I will say this also, Sammy, it's looking like Penn State might be without 3 offensive starting linemen this weekend. So potential opportunity for Miles Jackson, for McCullough to maybe do some things there. Sean, you got a question for him?
Yeah. So special teams, I mean, how would you assess Indiana special teams play so far this year?
Oh, it's I'd probably say I'd give him a B- to a B. James Evans, their punter's having a terrific year, but he has had one punt block that got returned for a touchdown. They've let up a couple long returns as well in situations where he's kind of outkicked his coverage. Charles Campbell, another good kicker, but he's had kicks blocked and has missed big kicks as well down the stretch. It's inconsistent. The kick return game has been okay when they return kicks and give the ball to Jalen Lucas, but they've also caught the ball a number of times, and then kickoff. IU's kicked the ball out of bounds, I think, 3 times this year, and in key situations. And they'll alternate between kickoff guys, between Chris Freeman and Charles Campbell as well. They're both onside kicks this year have been terrible. But I would say it's when they're playing well, they're as dangerous as anybody. When they're playing poorly, they're about as bad as anybody. Only having 5 wins over the last 2 years, there have been times where IU's special teams have helped, and then there have been times where IU's special teams have kind of put the dagger in themselves as well.
Yeah, that's also very relatable as far as you think something's going well and then things kind of come off the wheels a little bit. That's kind of Penn State special teams has been like at times. They had those 2 missed field goals that were called back for penalties, and then later in the game they decided to make a 44-yard field goal. So we totally get that. I don't know if YouTube, if you guys have any questions, this is your chance to drop a comment or a question below. Otherwise, Sammy, if you want to start kind of getting into your thoughts into this game specifically, where you're leaning, what are you thinking, and if you eventually have a score prediction, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, it looks like it's going to be a bad weather game. Unfortunately, it's going to be warm, but it's probably going to be raining, which might favor IU. I don't know. Anything to slow down the Penn State offense, shorten the game, will help. I don't expect IU to win this game. I don't think anybody does. But it could have turned into a close game. I think anything could happen with James Franklin coaching you guys. In terms of last year, you guys should have beat us by 45 points, and somehow we were in the game at halftime and things like that. I don't think he, has stuck his foot on people's throats as much as Penn State fans would like. And I don't know, maybe you get the student crowd back and IU gets a little energy. But IU's on a 5-game losing streak, and it's snowballed, and it's one of those streaks where you don't know if you're going to win again this year. And it's if Penn State gets off to a quick start, this game might be over early. If they don't, I mean, IU hasn't really gotten blown out all that much this year. They were in it against Michigan, tied 10-10 at halftime. It was a 7-point game going into the fourth quarter. Every game has been a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter, 1 or 2-score game if you count Cincinnati. So it's not like IU's had the doors blown off, but it also feels like at any time the wheels are going to fall off this bus, just like they did last year, and it got real ugly. But we'll see. We'll see. Indiana, they've played Penn State tough at home the last couple of years, and there's something always funky happens. Whether it was 2014, where you had a pick six, and then immediately after you had a 99-yard run by Bill Bilton, and things like that. You had 2004, where Jerry DiNardo decided to run it up the gut 4 times in a row. 2020, of course, you had the Michael Penix game and stuff like that. So who knows? You make it a four-quarter game, and who knows? But I will take Penn State to win this game. And I what's the spread? 14? Is it still 14? I would pick them to cover as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's been stuck at 14 the whole time, and yeah, there has been some crazy games. We were talking with Bill DeFilippo last night about some of those crazy games, and it has not been easy for the Nittany Lions going out there. But I also feel like this is I guess the 2020 game was at night. But besides that one, I feel like they're always at noon, so it's nice to see a 3:30 kick get put in there every once in a while. So.
I would have preferred noon. I would have given IU more of a chance. You guys coming off of Ohio State, sleepy. Yeah. What does Northwestern call it? Cat time. Yeah.
Exactly what that is. Yeah, but they have a whole another meeting to cat time. That's for sure. Well. Mark, we'll talk about. He answered that question. He was definitely worried about Parker Washington. He was worried about the defense and their ability. Is his main concern with Penn State. So, Sammy, we really appreciate your time, and we'll obviously talk to you soon. I think either Sean or I, one of us, will be joining you tomorrow night to hop on your podcast to talk some Indiana Penn State football over there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it, and. If you're Phillies fans listening, go Phillies. I'm not rooting for the Astros, so we'll go with the Phillies. Lesser of two evils, I guess.
Exactly. I'm a Yankee fan too, so I'm with you.
Yeah. All right.
Appreciate you, Sammy, man. Make sure you guys go check out Hoosier Huddle. We'll obviously tweet them when we send the link out tomorrow. But there's their logo right there. Maybe I'll send out a tweet right now just so people are aware they can find you on Twitter a little bit easier. But thank you, Sammy, so much.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sammy. Thanks for coming on.
I didn't even have to tell him. Look how big your head is right now. So, are you talking? I was gonna say you were muted for a second, but yeah, that's so funny how big you are. I'll have to work on that to get it so it doesn't do that. So we'll just have to do like multiple scenes is what we're gonna end up having to do.
Right.
Because otherwise it's gonna do that every time. But I don't want to say he sounded a little bit just kind of it is what it is, but he kind of seemed a little bit it is what it is, Sean. Like he's just like we have a chance if the weather's bad and things get stupid, but otherwise. We've lost 5 straight. What do you want me to say?
He sounded like I would have sounded if we were doing our podcast in 2020 or during the dark years between 2000 and 2004 for Penn State. And that's a tough place to be when, you love the team, but they can't win against anybody. I mean, yeah, we're all bummed that we didn't beat Ohio State or Michigan this year. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But imagine just not being able to beat anybody. Well, I mean, I don't think we need to imagine much because in 2020, for that 1 month, we couldn't beat anybody. And so it sucks. It sucks when your team is struggling like that.
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, we knew going into the year, Sean, that Indiana wasn't going to be very good. I think we both thought they'd probably finish at the bottom of the Big Ten East. I mean, just to give you guys an idea one more time, they had 12 transfer players. They had 5 new assistant coaches, 43.3 24/7 sports average composite ranking. They had a huge shuffling on the offensive line. Some of them have been hurt. Their new wide receiver from Trinity Valley, JUCO, Cam Camper, is now hurt for the whole season. And I think he mentioned someone else just got hurt too. So, yeah, the magic is definitely gone from that 2020 season. And Connor Bazelak hasn't really done a bunch. But, I mean, Michigan State's not as tough as what they thought. So maybe they can sneak some wins out towards the end of the year. And I guess what? They got to win 3 of the 4. So they're going to have to upset somebody. It's not looking great.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Big Ten, I think in general, I think I'd include the East in this, is anybody could beat each other except Ohio State, Michigan, and maybe us. And I don't know if I'd include us in that top group, but they beat Illinois. Granted, if they played Illinois this weekend, I think Illinois would be easily a double-digit favorite, and I would take them to win. But they played them when they played them, and they won the game, so that's what matters. And it's just like, hey, we're both Tom Allen fans, but I didn't even put 2 and 2 together until Sammy said it. They've only won 5 games in the last 2 years. So even for a program like Indiana, buddy, you got to start winning, or you're going to be out on the street. And if you take your program seriously, I mean, he's on the hot seat next year for sure. He'd be gone from Penn State, but when you're Indiana, I mean, you're probably going to give him another year, especially since he had previous success.
Yeah, I wouldn't say hot. I'd say warm for sure. I just don't know. I think Indiana has to be very careful with how they go about trying to replace him. If they can get somebody that they really think is a great offensive mind, whatever, maybe. But you got a guy who's going to keep you in games. Like you said, they've been in every game so far. I think if maybe you find a different offensive coordinator that provides just so you can have some more ammunition. But, I mean, it's going to take a special player on offense for Indiana to compete in the Big Ten East and play good defense. So it's not an easy task. But we do appreciate him coming on. Sammy from Hoosier Huddle, I just tweeted, so you can follow them on Twitter. I think it's literally, let me see if I got this right, at Hoosier_Huddle. As simple as that. So make sure to go give him some love. And I hadn't talked to you about it yet, Sean, but yeah, they invited us, I think, sometime tomorrow night. Obviously not putting you on a spot, but if you would like to go on, that more than welcome to, but we'll figure that out at some point. But one of us will be on their podcast to talk Penn State over there. Nate asked us earlier, what is up with the 3 linemen being out? Yeah, so we can get into that in just a second. I'm going to do a 5-star review plug real quick, and then we're going to talk some press conference notes. We're going to talk some practice notes, and we're going to do our final thoughts on Ohio State before we transition 100% over into Indiana week. This is from Tim Crum. 5 stars. Good podcast for all things Penn State football. Hosts are down to earth and level-headed. I don't know about that. They offer different perspectives and always have good guests. That is true. We've had an insane amount of great guests so far this season. The only Penn State football podcast I listen to, as I think they do a good job balancing analysis and fandom. Thanks, guys. No, thank you, Tim. And I think a sticker's already you're heading your way, so we really appreciate that. Yeah. I just saw your note, Sean. Let's get into the final thoughts.
You're muted.
I think somebody tweeted that they didn't see Sal Wormley.
Okay, I searched his name. I couldn't find it, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, I thought I saw.
Go.
I'm pretty sure someone from the Collegian or somebody said they didn't see Sal Wormley, but
okay. Well,
so
now,
we'll just,
but
yeah, yeah. Well, it's out there now, but for what Nate was asking, Nate Will. Sorry, I didn't see your last name. There was not capitalized. Landon Tangwall wasn't practicing. Olu Fashanu wasn't practicing. Caedan Wallace was practicing. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I thought I saw a tweet regarding Sal Wormley not out there or limited or something like that. But so keep that in mind. Most likely, at least not going to have your best offensive lineman in Fashanu. I still want to say Fashanu every time. And then obviously not having Landon Tangwall is a big deal. Sal Wormley, even if he played Sean, didn't have his best game, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then Bryce Effner is going to be flying around playing like 4 different positions at once, basically. But I guess you'd expect with Caedan Wallace back, you'd move Effner to left tackle, most likely. You could, if Tangwall was healthy, you could move Tangwall to tackle and move Effner to one of the guard spots and play around with some of that stuff. But with Tangwall out, you have to move Effner to left tackle. You'll have Norzad at left guard. You'll have Scruggs at center. If Sal Wormley can go, I guess it'll be Sal Wormley. If Sal Wormley can't go, I guess it's going to be JB Nelson. Probably.
So I also was going through different scenarios. And I mean, you could put Jimmy Christ. Maybe he could be our savior at tackle. You could put, because the thing is with Norzad, he's going to be playing one of the guard. Hold on. I sneezed. So you're going to put you're going to have Norzad as one of the guards. Yeah. I mean, and then you could put Effner at guard. I mean, you could do that. And one of the things James Franklin has consistently done, in the sanction years he did this too, was just try to put the best 5 out there. And he typically likes to cross-train guys. That's why you see a lot of swing tackles, swing guards. Guys like Bryce Effner, they like that because he has so much position versatility. Same thing with Landon Tangwall. But yeah, you start getting into options that you really haven't relied on all that much. So a guy like a Vega Ione, a guy like JB Nelson. Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance we have to turn to those guys. Hopefully Caedan Wallace comes back, because if we're down 4 linemen, I mean, that ain't good, guys. That is not good if we have every lineman out except Juice Scruggs.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you convinced me. I think I would definitely, nothing against Jimmy Christ, but I mean, he played a little bit at the end there against Ohio State, but I would put Effner at left tackle, assuming Wallace can play. If Wallace can't play, you got to start Christ. And then at that point, I guess what I'm interested in is JB Nelson or Vega gets the start if Sal Wormley can't play. I'd be curious to see who is at that right guard spot. I kind of forgot about Vega for a second. I think you might honestly see him before Jay. I don't know. Well, that's all speculation, but yeah, it's looking like Penn State probably has 1 to 2 healthy offensive linemen right now, which now it could be worse. You could be playing a lot tougher team than Indiana, but you don't really want to. I mean, this is the most depth that Penn State's had on the offensive line, and it went from really good to really not good really quickly. So, yeah, we'll talk more about Penn State and Indiana in a little bit, but that was the update, Nate Will, on the offensive line stuff. Let's get into the final thoughts on Ohio State, Sean. I had a couple plays. If you want to see the full film breakdown, again, it's on Twitter. There's a huge thread about it. If you just search in the search bar on Twitter, if you just search hardcore PSU FB, all undercase, one word, and you just put like film and then breakdown and no space on the breakdown, I think it literally will pop up like the 3. It'll pop up the Minnesota one probably first, and then maybe the Michigan one, and then it'll have the Ohio State one on there. We're not going to go into every single one because I broke down a lot of plays, probably the most, I think, of any of them. There's a lot of them. I was
did a great job. I was sleeping.
I was powered by the chocolate chip pumpkin muffins that we took all the, the innards out of the pumpkin, right? That after we were done carving them, and I save it and I, blend it all up. No, not the seeds, but everything else. And I was like, oh, I'll make, chocolate chip pumpkin muffins out of it. And I ended up making like 50 of them. Like I just had so much extra stuff. So yeah, we had a bunch of, I think we just,
your own pumpkin, huh?
yeah, 2. We had 2, hers and mine. So yeah, 2 pumpkins, and just blend up all the pumpkin innards, for lack of a better word. And yeah, just go to, I don't know, it was like a cup and a half each of pumpkin stuff. But yeah, we had a lot. If you lived closer, Sean, I would have sent you some, because I think I sent like 15 or so with Maddie to work today. So we have a lot of muffins. Anyway, so that's why I was up late doing that. But no, I recommend checking out, because there was some plays that I was like, oh wow, I forgot that looked better. And then there were some plays that I was like, I wanted to cry. And I want to show you the ones that I wanted to cry on, at least. I will say, since we're talking offensive line so much, I do want to say that Bryce Effner played a lot better than obviously the splash plays that are going to make him look terrible. He did some really good things. JTT didn't go up against him very much in the first half. Really not even that much in the third quarter. But still, there were times when he did go up against him, and he was able to ride him out and kind of kick him out, and did a really good job. So I do want to start by saying maybe I was a smidgen harsh to him because I hadn't seen the film yet, but it wasn't great. So, yeah.
Did you see those hearts?
Yeah, I did.
What was it? See those hearts?
Is that you? Are you shooting hearts at people? Is that you?
So I accidentally had my mouse over the react thing, and I clicked it by mistake. So you got a bunch of heart. I just really love what you said, Corey.
Okay, I got it. I wanted to show you. This is I think one of the ones that actually looked really, I think, good early on with Bryce Effner, and JTT right here. Look at him winning this one-on-one, kind of keeps him out. I believe that was actually the pass interference play right there. So doesn't let him get sacked, gets a nice little kick out, just does enough. I wouldn't say that's a win, but it wasn't a loss. And I think at some point you just got to be happy you didn't lose one. So I wanted to show that to say yay. I'm not going to go in any order because it's cluttered on my thing, but this is one that really hurt my heart, Sean. And this is the 4th and 2 in the third quarter on the opening drive. 4th and 2, sorry, on the opening drive. I didn't like the decision, or you thought you would have kicked it. I said I'm okay to go for it, but I didn't like the play call.
I would have kicked it, but the play call could have been better.
Yeah, I thought so too. But when I watched this again, I still obviously don't love the play call. I don't think the play action boot's going to be there. I think the defensive end for Ohio State does a pretty good job staying relatively home. I don't know if Sean keeps that, if he makes it or not. But what I really wanted to highlight here, and I don't know if I think I can slow this down or pause it here, is watch 77 here, Sal Wormley, the right guard. He's going up against, I forget his first, Kieran Williams. His last name's Williams. I apologize. I don't remember his first name. Williams is about to toss this guy aside. And if Williams doesn't make this play here, this defensive lineman that's engaged with Sal Wormley, 77 right now, if he doesn't make this play, I really think Penn State might not just get the first down, but I think they might score a touchdown because Bryce Effner does a fantastic job. Kaytron Allen and Dr. Strange himself, Brenton Strange, do a good job. And, there we go. And he just beats him, right? I mean, he beats him bad. But look at the block by Allen. Look at the block by Strange. If this guy's not here, look at this whole butt-to-butt from Effner and Strange. I mean, that thing, the middle linebacker got stuck. I mean, it's one-on-one with the safety with Nick Singleton, and you can ask Auburn how they feel about that. So, I don't know, Sean. That to me was a bummer when I saw that because, man, even if you don't like the play call, it was there.
Yeah, and I mean, part of why, I don't love the play call is, you're asking all of your guys to, block, go at the point of attack against talented Buckeyes front seven, and that's part of what they do. They beat blocks, and it just sucks because I see what you're saying, and if Warmly blocks it better, that might be 6 points. It might not just be a first down; it might be a touchdown. But I still would have liked a different play call. Like I said, I would have kicked. However, we all know how Jake Pinniger is from the right hash, so that might have been the wrong thing to do as well.
Yeah. That's a good point. I in hindsight too, right? It's always easier to say something in hindsight. I wanted to show the two plays that really upset me a bunch, and it was this one right here. So this is the fourth down in the first half. After the timeout, they run trips to the left, and I have Marvin Harrison at the top of your screen, 1-on-1 with Kalen King in this situation. But it's like 4th and 4, 4th and 6, I think. I think it's 4th and 6. And I don't really care that this happened, right? Because obviously they don't score any points. But remember this play. Again, after a timeout, remember this play because I'm going to show you the next play that really upset me. So it's just a simple slant route. We're playing off coverage. Just easy money, right? Like not nothing crazy going on there. And then from that play, Sean, I take you all the way towards the end of the game in the fourth quarter. Penn State's down by 6. Timeout on the field. It's a 3rd and 10. And Joey Porter Jr. is lined up over there. And you're thinking, okay, just need to stop, get the ball back, gives Sean Clifford his legacy moment, one last chance to maybe score and beat Ohio State, and everyone goes crazy happy. But they've got to stop. They've got to stop him on this play. Here it is. And I will say this. Someone on Twitter mentioned to me something that I think is important. There was a change from this play by Manny Diaz and the play that he ran in the first half. And that's going to be Adisa Isaac attempting to cover this slant route. But watch what happens. And, So, again, off coverage, which I don't like, which I was very upset about. But watch Adisa Isaac, and I'll show it again. He tries to get back. He's at the top of your screen there, and the tackle actually holds on to him just long enough. And it's not a penalty or anything, but he's just a little slow getting out. He's trying to fake like he's going to go, so that way his guys have a better chance of getting to the passer. But he fakes it almost too long. And right there, he needs to already be another yard or two back, Sean. And he either picks this off or it gets tipped. It doesn't really matter what. It's 3rd and 10. Ohio State's going to punt the football. If he just gets back another yard and gets into throwing lane, he was actually really close to tipping it as it was. And if that's not enough, I don't know if that's Carter right there, but someone else almost tips it as well. So there was multiple people that were close to that, but I still didn't like the soft coverage by 10 yards. It was just way too easy. But Adisa Isaac is literally a yard away and a moment away from getting the turnover and the stop right there, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little too cute. And I would have had King and Porter. At Porter, I mean, he's your guy that might be a top 10 pick. I think you got to have him playing up in Harrison's grill a bit. And to ask and you're right. I think Isaac should have dropped back earlier, but that's a lot to ask in a high pressure situation from a defensive end to do. But again, execution, and we weren't able to do it. On the previous play that you went over, I wanted to make a comment. Yes, they didn't get anything that drive, but I have zero doubt if we get the ball back, Yurcich is looking to score. I mean, we saw him at Purdue, and we did in the first half move the ball better against Ohio State than we did against Purdue. So I think Franklin gives them the green light to at least try to get in the field goal. We at least try to get in the field goal range. We're probably trying to score a touchdown. So that could have been big to get points there before the half, especially considering we would have gotten the ball first in the second half.
That's a good point. Even if you get a field goal there.
Yep.
This is, I'm not. You guys have all seen the turnovers by Sean Clifford. People are going to think what they want as far as which ones they think are Sean's fault, which ones they think is someone else's fault, which ones they just think JTT is really good. I'm not going to go over that anymore. I did want to highlight, this is probably my favorite play that Sean Clifford had. I mean, Bryce Effner gets beat like a drum on this one pretty badly. Somehow Clifford's able to outrun this guy, which I'm pretty sure nobody expected him to be able to do. But then he keeps his cool, keeps his eyes down the field, and is able to find Theo Johnson. I mean, this drive, the first drive, Parker Washington deserves all the credit, right? I mean, nice play. But this drive, Sean Clifford made some excellent decisions, excellent throws, and that was a big one. I think one play later, Keandre Lambert-Smith a touchdown. So, I mean, that's everything you want. Stays in the pocket, keeps the play alive, extends the play, defense breaks down in their zone, and you find your tight end. I mean, that's everything you want in a play right there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this was the best play of the day from Sean Clifford. And that's something I did say on the last pod, that it doesn't feel like he's improved on much of anything from the time he started. Well, the one thing he did improve on is keeping his eyes downfield. And that's a perfect example of it right there. And here's the Parker Washington play. And like Corey said, it's pretty much all Parker. He's got two guys that are going to try to bring him down. They kind of cancel each other out. And then Parker turns on the jets. And we talked about not really having a burner at receiver, but maybe Parker was listening. Maybe he got motivated, and he was like, well, I'm going to show these two that, I can turn on the jets and leave these guys in the dust. And he hits the accelerator, and he gone. So it was a big play for Penn State because we needed points on this drive. This was, you're down 10 points, you're down 2 scores. It felt like the game was starting to teeter a little bit, even though we were moving the ball. You just didn't know how long it was going to keep up. And if you get 3 scores, then you're dead. So big play for Penn State to respond and stay in this game.
Yeah, I was going to show too. I mean, Singleton had a fantastic block. Clifford's got a dude right in his face, and not only does he throw it to Parker Washington, but how many times have we seen the throw, we talked about it the Central Michigan game where he was throwing it high and it wasn't giving Washington the chance to run after the catch because Parker Washington was losing all of his momentum when he was going to catch it. This time Clifford throws it not only on the money, but he actually leads him perfectly. I don't know what Mitch Tinsley was doing, to be honest with you. In my opinion, he's lucky he didn't get an offensive pass interference because Washington's catching this in front of the line of scrimmage. He is not really running a route. And although he didn't really make a bunch of contact, it's just one of those ones where I was like, man, in hindsight, I don't think it should have been, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he got hosed on something like that, on a big play like that. But it actually worked out perfectly. So, yay.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that great of a.
No.
If it was interference, it wouldn't even been that great an interference.
No, it was just like
because the guys kind of got in there pretty easily.
It was just weird. I don't know. I really don't know I don't know what exactly he was supposed to do, and I don't know what he did, but I don't want to go through all of these. I do want to show, I think, 2 more in case you missed it. I wanted to show the Tyler Warren catch because I think it's worth showing one more time. The if I can find it, that is the kind of the shifting. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it though. So, oh no, here it is. Just the shifting, because that was a wrinkle we hadn't seen before. And then so look at the top of your screen on this. You're going to see. Here comes Mike Yursich right now running in, and I think he's telling Clifford what to do. I don't really know what he's thinking. The clock isn't an issue, but if you look at the top of your screen here, Mike Yursich right now he's running in, and I don't know what he's yelling. And Clifford's already about to snap it, so I don't really know if he's talking to Clifford or not. But it looks like he's pointing, like to tell Cliff where to go. I don't really know. But nice catch by Tyler Warren, big catch, and I'm kind of surprised they trusted him in that moment. But it was a big moment.
Yeah, he had the catch against Michigan last year too, I believe. So
he had two nice catches against Michigan.
Yeah, so they've shown that they trust him to make catches in big spots. So that's encouraging. And even if Strange decides to go to the NFL next year, you still got to feel really good about the tight end room.
Yeah,
with him and with Theo. Yeah,
I agree. This is the last one I want to show, and then we'll kind of wrap up on Ohio State. Really good blocking. Tinsley even gets in there and blocks a little bit. This is the best run of the day. Kaytron Allen looked really good here. Strange, and look at Effner. Effner did a fantastic job on this play blocking. So, again, you're asking Effner to do a lot to block JTT for a lot of the day. But when he was able just to block downhill and wash people, he did a really good job. I thought Brenton Strange may have had his best day blocking as well. And Kaytron Allen, I mean, he ended up, I think, with like 75, 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, all in all, pretty impressive day for him against a really good Ohio State defense. Whether or not, they're great, they're still very, very good. So, those are all the highlights I had.
Look at it this way. They're better this year than they were in 2020 and 2021, and we ran the ball much better this year. We protected Clifford much better. So, I think you got to take that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. So, Sean, we talked a lot about Ohio State on the episode yesterday, so I don't really want to harp on it too much more at this juncture. But when I watched the film, I guess I was happy to see there's a lot of good things, and I think Franklin reiterated that. You can hate Clifford all you want. Besides those turnovers, I know it's a big besides, but besides those turnovers, you could argue it was one of his better games of his career. I mean, he ended up with some plays. I think Franklin even said better throws and throws he hadn't even seen that Clifford ever make, he made against Ohio State. Obviously, some bad ones too, and that was the difference. But Clifford did look good, and again, we are not want to go down the Clifford route, but he had his chance, and that is what it is. Press conference news we talked about yesterday pretty extensively. The only thing I wanted to lead into was Franklin said tonight he wasn't ready to announce a starter at quarterback, or he had no announcement for the starting quarterback. So I wanted to mention that. Brenton Strange was interviewed today, and he was asked about Aller. And it really seemed, guys, like not the same sort of answer we've been hearing before. And maybe, again, we're reading into the tea leaves of it. I think is what Bill said yesterday. But that's kind of the latest on the quarterback situation. And we'll get more into it as we flip our switch into Indiana 100%. But, Sean, any final thought on Indiana or on Ohio State? We have a lot of thoughts on Indiana still.
What hurts the most is being so close, as the song goes. And one of the drunk conversations I've had in my life is, would you rather get blown out in a game, or would you rather lose close? I think you can make a good argument either way, because now we're sitting here on Wednesday and you're just looking at a couple plays and you're like, if that could have went different, we probably win the game. Whereas after the Michigan game, I think you're more upset in the immediate aftermath of a blowout. But by Wednesday, you're kind of able to just turn the page and go, look, we sucked on Saturday, and that's what happened. And we did a lot of things wrong. Whereas there's only a play or two that if we had back, we'd probably win the game. We do win the game. We played better than Ohio State did for most of the game on Saturday. But you commit 4 turnovers, you don't force any yourself, you're not gonna beat elite opponents. It's just not it's not going to happen. And think about how well we moved the ball. And they had 21 points off of turnovers. And in addition to that, think about if we don't turn the ball over, we score more points too. We scored 31 points and we had 4 turnovers in addition to that. So you got to think there's at least probably 10 points in there somewhere. And we win this game, maybe going away. Maybe we win by about 10 points. But that's not the way it works. And it sucks that we lost to them again. But maybe this is the freshman class that by next year or the year after could put us over the top and we could finally get a win over these guys. And maybe, 2025, I believe. When does the playoff expand?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's in the next few years. But maybe we sneak into the playoff next year. Who knows? But you need that Ohio State win in all likelihood. And we came up short. And I'm getting tired of it. I know the fans are getting tired of it. But I got to believe we're going to beat them at some point.
Yeah, 2026, by the way. 2026. Before we get into our final thoughts on Indiana, and I guess actually we'll just probably start going towards the fan questions here sooner than later. I want to give a shout out or a thank you to Donnie Collins, who in his podcast, Penn Stated, which you should very much listen to. It's only usually like 30 to 40 minutes once a week, typically. Although this week he might have a little bit more because this one is shorter, so maybe he'll have 2. Usually it's only like an hour tops. Usually it's a little bit less. Very good podcast. I love Donnie's voice. I think he has a great podcasting voice. And anywho, he shouted us out. And he gave us some love. He read one of our tweets in its entirety, the whole thread on his podcast. And he said to go listen to us. So thank you very much, Donnie Collins. We very much appreciate it. That was a really cool moment for us. I mean, Sean, you and I haven't really talked a bunch about it specifically, but I was very much geeking out in the fact that, hey, look, like, we're a fan podcast at the end of the day. That's right. But it's cool when a lot of different members of the beat have been very friendly and supportive of kind of our stuff. So that's been really cool to see.
I agree. Yeah, the beat in general has been really, really cool. And obviously we had Audrey on here. We had Donnie on here. But we've had good interactions on Twitter, Corey Geiger, Rich Scarcella. I believe Neil Rudell retweeted us. So that's really cool because these are people that I grew up reading and reading on Twitter and reading their articles. And a lot of these guys and a lot of these guys have been around forever. So to see and Donnie, I'm a Scranton guy. I've followed Donnie since I was born, basically. It feels like since I've been watching Penn State football. Donnie Collins was the columnist covering Penn State and covering at the time the Red Barons and now the Rail Riders. And to have him acknowledge us, yeah, it was really, really cool, really, really nice, and we appreciate it. And yes, I agree, his podcast is top notch. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's go into fan questions right away. How about that? Because I think it's going to preview anything else we need to preview as far as Indiana with that. So let's go fan questions and some bold predictions from the fans. I have 2 from each. Yeah, let's do that. And this is actually, I want to go to this one first. It's kind of out there. It's a recruiting question. And this is from, I want to say it's Devin. I know people pronounce that differently. Obviously, Devon Smith played for Penn State, the shorter guy who fumbled against Alabama.
Devon Smith.
I'm sorry that that's the first thing I think of Devon Smith if you're listening. Probably not. But if you are, I apologize. But that's the first thing I thought of. I guess you could think of the touchdown against Northwestern. That was a big catch he had by Matt.
He had his moments. He was very fast.
But anyway, it's not the point.
Consistently.
Yeah. And he tripped on himself quite a bit. I feel like tripped on the field.
He did. Classic track guy, not really football.
Right. But anyway, Devin O'Blakely or Devon O'Blakely. I'm going to assume it's Devin. I'm going to make that assumption. Devin says, from a recruiting standpoint, is Penn State expecting a strong close to the recruiting class, a strong close to the recruiting class, or are they expecting to stay around 15? I believe that range from a composite score standpoint doesn't really move the needle when talking about stacking classes, correct? Sean, you're the dude. You talk.
I agree. I think you got to be around the top 10 every year. And 15, that's good. That's good. It's going to get it done against the Minnesotas of the world, the Indianas of the world, Purdue's. But when you want to beat the Ohio States of the world, 15, you want to be better. Now, I would say Michigan and Penn State, I believe right now their rosters are 13th and 14th right now as far as just raw recruiting rankings for the team. Not for the year, but for the team. That's what they're, they average the classes up and what your roster talent is. It's around there. But I want to be better than that. I want to be higher than that. And I think you need more classes like last year, and you got to have better classes than this year so far. I will say Terry Smith said that they would like to add about 5 more guys. I'm actually surprised by that. I think they definitely want to add a running back. There's a guy from Miami, his name escapes me, that they want to have come up who plays running back. He's a good player. Kavion Keys was on campus for the Minnesota game. For those of you that have been with us for a while, you've heard his name before. So they're trying to stay in it. I don't know if they'll be able to pull it off, but they're trying. So probably after another linebacker, you never have enough edge guys, and they're probably going to go on the portal for, like we said, a receiver. They may try to recruit another receiver. So look out for that. So I don't think they're done recruiting. I don't know how much it's going to change, though, because other teams are going to also add talent and probably pass us out. So probably a good idea if you want to keep your top 15 spot to keep adding some more players.
Yeah, Terry Smith, I think, said a week or two ago that they expected to add 4 to 6, which I thought was a bigger number than I originally thought they had left. So, and he actually gave a shout out to his staff for keeping that pretty up to date. So obviously they have a better number than we do. And I think it is going to be around 15-ish, which isn't bad. For a second there, it was looking like it could be top 10. Then we had some decommits, and who knows what happens towards the end. But yeah, it's not stacking classes. I think that's true. But it's also not like a bad class that's like ruins all your momentum. It's a very much kind of keeps the mojo flowing in that direction. You're not losing. I don't know if it was the 2020 class, Sean, or the 2021 class, whatever one it was that wasn't very good at all, and you lost some momentum. I don't think that's the case. If you can come back in 2024 and put together, again, a top 10 class, you could argue that then that 2024 season would have probably the best roster Penn State's ever had under James Franklin. You could argue that. A top 15 class next year and then a top 10 class in 2024. They would be looking really good. And really deep. So thank you, Devon, for that question. I actually forgot to hit the record button for that question. So sorry, Devin, but you did not get the question, the fan question. Did you want to add something to that, Sean?
Yeah, and I mean, look, guys, there are good players in this class. Alex Berkmeyer is a really, really good prospect. King Mack I love his upside. He's he's a freak. He's good. I think he's going to be really, really good. Tony Rojas, we talked about extensively. Elliott Washington decommitted from Bama. So there are really good players in this class. So I don't want to shortchange it at all. But you just wish you had a couple more. We lost some big decommits. We lost out on some guys that we almost got. So guys like Evan Link, who ended up at Michigan, that one really hurt. But, it happens. So also, I think Jackson Smolik, I like him better than a lot of the recruiting services do. So you have to factor that in. And a lot of times your class, not the overall class quality, but it really helps to have a class with a stud quarterback. And a lot of times that makes the class. So I don't know if Jackson's that stud, but I think he's a little bit better than the services are giving him credit for.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. So thank you, Devin, for that question. We appreciate it. Apologize that most of it won't make it into the fan question segment on YouTube. This one's a little out there, Sean, but we're going to go with it anyway. This is from Brian Bachman, and it'll pop up in a second. Hypothetical question. If Drew Aller has a 4-interception performance, would he play in the following game? I don't really care about the 4-interception part of this question, Sean, but I wanted you to answer the kind of the other part of, or really the problem, the question behind the question, if you will, and that is, what happens if Drew Aller struggles? And we're assuming hypothetically that he's playing. What do you do? Do you go back? Do you just let him suffer through it? At what point do you go back? What are your thoughts there?
I think you keep him as a starter, but you can't be afraid to have Clifford come in relief. If he looks lost, if he looks like a lost puppy out there, which I don't think he will, but if he did, I think you have to keep Clifford available and have him potentially come in and bail Aller out. And I would not be opposed to that at all. So I think you continue to keep him as a starter. You don't want to, after one bad game, if he struggles at Indiana, you don't want to then start Sean Clifford the next week. I think that's kind of confusing. It sends mixed signals. And if the whole idea is to work through Drew Aller's growing pains this year so he has less next year, well, then let him work through it. And let him go through a week of film where there's a lot of bad stuff on it, and have Mike Yurcich work to correct him and to make corrections and to try to bounce back. So I don't think going back to Sean Clifford as the starting quarterback would be the best idea, but I wouldn't be opposed to playing him in relief if we need to win the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we can get more into that in a second as far as what we think might go down. Let's go to, I think this is Dorito, our boy Dorito, with this next. This is actually a bold prediction, so we're done with the questions. We're going to the bold predictions. 2, one from Dorito, one from Mr. I can actually get that as a sound bite, and we can have that on here.
We have to get a soundboard next year.
So I can, what I have my setup on my deck right now, we can do, I have room for 2 buttons that aren't being used right now. So theoretically, I could do whatever I want. So I can have a Mr. or whatever. But yeah, anyway, this is from Dorito. Penn State defense gets 2 pick sixes in the first half. Sean Clifford starts, but due to a 2-touchdown lead at half, Aller plays the second half and throws for 150 yards. Penn State hasn't had a pick 6 yet this season. I think the last pick 6 was Daquan Hardy against Michigan State.
Yeah, because we didn't have one against Arkansas. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's been a very common thing to predict, I guess, even on Twitter, has been the pick 6s. Look, Indiana throws the ball a bunch. They throw it short. They don't throw it very far, and they're not great at doing it, but they do throw it a bunch. So, I want to talk tempo in a second too, Sean. Don't let me forget to talk tempo. Yeah, I don't go with the 2 pick sixes, but I think the Drew Aller playing the second half and throwing for 150 yards is possible. However, and I guess we can just say it here, it's supposed to rain. And I don't foresee a Northwestern-style rain, but you got to keep that in mind with these 150-yard predictions from the backup quarterback, Dorito. You got to check the Weather Channel, Dorito, before you come to us with your bold predictions. You think?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, you think it's easy doing this? You got to check the Weather Channel. You got to check. No, that's about it. That's all you got to do.
yeah, that's about right. Yeah, the thing about playing in Bloomington, and I think it's going to be another windy day. It's always windy, and now you're adding rain. The weather conditions are just never ideal out there, and it's hard to put up. And the funny thing about it is Indiana, for probably the last 15 years, has always been pretty much an aerial assault offense, and they love to throw the ball. And they're never really known for their run game. So I don't love, and I do think at some point this month we will get a pick six, and we've all predicted one. And for whatever reason, they just haven't happened yet. But I do think at some point this month we'll get one. I don't know if we get two in this game, but I do think in the last month of the year we'll get one. Our corners are too good, and Wait, we did have a pick six. Curtis Jacobs had a pick six.
Oh, yeah.
At Michigan.
I tried to race that game. Good point, Sean.
Yeah, I did too. So,
Someone is yelling at us on the podcast right now. Like, they're going to be listening to this and be like, oh, my God, these guys have no idea what they're talking about.
Yes, just keep listening for 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
We get to it. Anyway, I don't know how you feel, Corey. We might get more into this because I think we're going to keep going with the quarterback conversation. I don't love the idea of playing both Clifford and Aller and having like packages for Clifford and Aller. I think if you're going to go to Aller, have a game plan for him all week and give him the reins. I don't like the idea of one quarterback coming in, one quarterback going out, unless, like I said, Aller's in trouble and you want Cliff to go win you the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, yeah, we can briefly talk about it more in a second. But I agree with that. I don't think you go back and forth all day. We've seen some people on Twitter ask for that, but I agree. I don't like that. Let them get in rhythm. Let them do it whatever the way they want to do it. This one is from Mr. Mister. He says Cliff starts but has 2 quick. So this is the opposite of Dorito. I think this is why I did that. Cliff starts but has 2 quick turnovers. Aller comes in, doesn't relinquish the job. Penn State wins another ugly one, 24-21. So doesn't sound like it's going to be a very fun day on Saturday if it's up to Mr. Mister.
I mean, we only beat Northwestern by 10, and I think Indiana's I think they're better than Northwestern. So, I mean, it could happen, and I hate playing out in Bloomington. So I think, not to preview the predictions, but I think I'm a little more worried about this one than Corey is, just because of the history out in Indiana and the history of Penn State coming off of close losses. So I could see it. It's just a 3-point game, and Indiana is really bad. So I don't know. I understand where you're coming from, though, Mr. Mister.
Yeah, I keep changing my score prediction every time someone talks. So I've changed it twice now. But that's for later. I don't think Sammy ever gave us like an official score. I think they said that PSU covers, but I don't know if I ever got a number out of it.
Yeah, he just said Penn State covers.
But anyway, okay. Thank you so much for the questions. Thank you so much for the bold predictions. Again, at Hardcore PSU FB is where you can find us and drop your questions. We appreciate that. So I do want to talk, or there's a couple things on the stats I want to mention real quick. And then I think we talk quarterback not too extensively, and then we can get into the predictions and that be the case. Penn State versus Indiana defense. I just really wanted to mention, Sean, that Indiana defensively is not great. They do a decent job against the run. Michigan struggled for a little bit there. They do a decent job against the pass, but nothing crazy. I mean, it's going to be a walk in the park compared to what they face against Ohio State, which is really the bottom line. And they're not taking the football away very well. So that's what I wanted to mention there. Nothing crazy, but I really wanted to talk about the Indiana offense, Sean, because statistically, this is, I think, the offense that matches up the best with Penn State because they don't like to run it. And you know what? I was going to show 2 highlights, and I'm not going to, obviously, but of just 2 more plays of why size isn't the issue. But I was just going to mention that Penn State, I mean, I'm not saying they lined up perfectly all the time in size with Ohio State, but they showed enough when they struggled, it wasn't because of the size being the issue. It was because of the gaps and the responsibilities. Thankfully, Indiana, look at that. That is not an error, people, for watching on YouTube. 2.7 yards per rush right now. That's not like the defensive what they're allowing. That's what they are running for right now. And then 5.6 passing yards per attempt, which is also not. Just to give you an idea, Ohio State's at 10. So they're half is what Ohio State is as far as explosive passing goes. Third down conversion, not great, 37%. Penn State's not great either, 33%. But here's the biggest one to me, Sean, that I really wanted to highlight. Indiana in the red zone scores touchdowns only 50% of the time. So just to give you an idea, Penn State to beat Ohio State or to compete with Ohio State kept them to around 30. I think it ended up being like 40% actually when it's all said and done on touchdowns in the red zone against Ohio State. That's actually what they've done all year. They're at 40% for the year on allowing touchdowns in the red zone. 50% as an offense is awful, just terrible. And I just don't know if Indiana is going to be able to score enough points in this one. And that's why I wanted to bring that up. Also, they give the ball away a decent amount of time as well. And Connor Bazelak has historically, I said this on the summer show, historically, Sean, giving the ball away. I want to see if I can pull this up real quick just so people actually, it was nuts. Bazelak, 23 touchdowns, 17 interceptions at Missouri. I mean, that says you want that number to not be very close to each other, and it was. So, yeah, I think the Indiana offense, if Dorito is going to be right about 2 picks in the game, I think this is the game.
Yeah, and you know, you look at Bazelak's numbers this year. I mean, they're still not good. I mean, look at those passing yards per attempt, 5.6 yards, and he still has 9 interceptions. I mean, how does that even happen? And he's only completing 55% of his throws. So he's basically throwing from me to my couch over there, and he's only completing that pass not even 60% of the time. You're not going to win games that way, especially when your running game is anemic. And I'm almost being kind in saying it's anemic. So this isn't a lot of times Indiana has fun offenses. They could never run the ball, but they could always just throw the ball around the yard. They've had really fun receivers in the past. They've had scary receiving corps before. A lot of them are playing in the NFL right now. So they've had fun offenses and air raid offenses. This is not your grandfather's Indiana team would be pretty awful. This is not your, older brother's Indiana offense. So don't expect too many big plays from them this week, especially against our secondary. So hopefully this is a get-right game for the defense. And yes, I acknowledge angry people on Twitter. For 3.5 quarters, we played well on defense. But in 9 minutes, you can't give up 21 points. So that being said, I think this has potential to be a get-right game for the defense.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Michael Higgins says on YouTube, Indiana's quarterbacks outside of 2020, Michael Penix, are poor man's versions of Peyton Ramsey. Peyton Ramsey, not very good at all. I want to say, too, when Indiana's offense was good, it was because Kevin Wilson was there. And where's Kevin Wilson? At Ohio State. So just a full circle right back to everything always ends. Everything always ends with Ohio State. Okay. Let's talk quarterbacks briefly, Sean. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much because we talked about them a lot in the last episode with Bill. Go check that episode out if you want a fleshing out version of that. However, we got to talk about it a little bit because there's a little bit of an update, or at least what we think maybe might be the case. So, Sean, I know you're thinking now. We both said we would start Aller if the world was perfect right now, right? Indiana. I don't have the tweet in front of me, but they're like 100th in passing yards per game allowed, and they're like 97th or something in yards per attempt allowed. They're like 87th in interceptions and like 102nd or something in sacks, or 88th, I think, in sacks maybe. They're not great. And the statistics that you'd be concerned with when it comes to passing the football. They're also averaging over 150-something yards rushing per game allowed. So they're not going to really theoretically slow down the Penn State running game too much. Maybe early on, but not as the game progresses. So it seems like it would be a great opportunity to start Mr. Drew Aller. However, Sean, I know now with some offensive line injuries, you're a little bit more reserved about this.
Correct. And I want to play Drew Aller this week. But, guys, so Caedan Wallace is banged up at least. Maybe he plays this week, maybe he doesn't, but he's at least battling some injury that's held him out. So that's already a concern. Not a big enough concern not to play Aller, though. I really like 7 offensive linemen on this team, and that's some years in the past 7 more than I've liked on previous teams. So that perspective, not really a problem. And then Landon Tangwall gets hurt in warm-ups at Michigan. He's not back. Well, okay, that's 2 guys down. But again, I still feel good about 5 of the guys we have. Then Olu gets hurt at the end of the Ohio State game, which I didn't know about till the next day because it was right at the end of the game. And Audrey Snyder, I believe, pointed it out on Twitter that he was on the bike and then he limped back to the locker room. So I don't know what's up with Olu, but he's hurt as well. And then we find out Sal Wormley's hurt too. So those are 4 linemen that are at least banged up. And yeah, I don't think I feel comfortable putting Aller in if he doesn't have 3 linemen ready to play on Saturday. Now, everybody has bumps and bruises at this point in the season. That's true. But if he's down 3, if 3 of our starting linemen can't go, I don't really feel great about starting a true freshman. I just don't. I've seen this show before where you put a true freshman out there with a bad offensive line, and it usually doesn't end well. However, Indiana does suck. So, I mean, there's that. But I'd probably lean towards starting Cliff if we don't have 3 linemen. If we're only down, like hypothetically, if we're only down Tangwall and we're down, I don't know, Olu, or we're down Wormley, we could get by with him then. But 3, that's a lot.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Sean. I don't know what you do in that situation. I will say this about the quarterback situation, and I think our friend Michael Higgins actually brought it up. We're both, again, on the start Aller if everything's perfect in the world. Well, assuming that the offensive line is good enough where you feel comfortable with Drew Aller starting, why wouldn't you start him? And if you're not going to start him this week, does that kind of mean you're not going to start him the rest of the season? I just don't know. If it's not now, then when? And looking into the horizon, if you don't think you can go 1-0 against Indiana with Drew Aller right now, how confident are you going to be that he's going to be able to hang with and or beat Ohio State and Michigan in a year from now. And I just don't think if that's the case, then we have bigger issues. If you don't think Drew Aller right now can beat Indiana, beat Rutgers, beat Michigan State at home with all the talent he has around him in a pretty solid running game, I don't know how you feel better in a year from now as far as him taking the reins and being the superstar that you want to be. Now, I get it. 5-star guys don't have to come in and start right away. I mean, look at what Spencer Rattler has been so far. I mean, it happens across the country. However, they have done their due diligence. They've got him in when they can. They've done things the right way. They have a great quarterback in Sean Clifford. And I just don't know. If it's not now, then when is it? And if it's the offensive line, the reason why they don't do it, then okay, fine. Maybe that's what the reservation is. I don't know. If it's the weather, well, it's going to be rainy in State College when Drew Aller starts again, I promise you. But we do know that they struggle to take care of the football against Northwestern, so maybe that's the reservation. But if it's a perfect weather, the offensive line's good enough to go, I don't know if not now, then when. And that leads me to my next thing, and that is the Sean Clifford aspect of all of this. As was mentioned on the press conference on Tuesday, James Franklin said that he was going to meet with Sean Clifford. He was asked today, Wednesday night, what was that meeting about? He said, I'm not going to talk about it. Shocking. Clearly, he probably wasn't supposed to bring it up. But it begs the question, why? What was that meeting all about? And why wasn't he meeting with Sean Clifford right away? Like, if you're starting captain for 6 years or your 4-time starting captain wants to talk to you, why are you waiting 2 days to do it? What is the contents of that conversation? Is it Clifford saying, hey, give me another shot? Or is it, hey, I see the writing on the wall. I get it. And I honestly don't know. I find it hard to believe it's either of those, but I just don't understand why any of that's happening. And Sean, if it's time, right? And a lot of people are going to praise Jesus. It's time that Drew Aller takes over. I think you have the best possible mentor in Sean Clifford. And I don't just mean that in the stuff that he provides as far as what he's been through and what he does in his preparation and what he knows about the X's and O's. Everybody knows that by now. But what I mean is there are not a lot of quarterbacks that would say, you know what? I had a chance to get what I wanted to write my legacy and to fulfill my dreams. But I'm a team guy. I'm a program guy. And I care about my brothers. I care about my literal brother. But I care about my team. And if I can't reach those goals, I want someone to reach those goals. And if that means the best way for the program to reach those goals is with Drew Aller to start and for me to pass on any wisdom I have, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. And I think that is something Sean Clifford can do, and not many other quarterbacks in the country are willing to do. So that's a credit to him. That's a respect to him. But I think it would be almost a disservice to not use Clifford in that fashion with him being there as a resource and being a guy who's willing and capable of actually doing it and doing it the right way. So that's what I'm interested in, and we are not going to ever really know a lot of those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I mean, all we have is speculation on what Sean Clifford and James Franklin have apparently spoken about, I guess, yesterday or whatever. So we really won't know. I do agree with you that Sean Clifford is the type of guy that I could see for the good of the program being willing to say, hey, I think Drew's ready. And
hold on, Sean. Say that again. I didn't get that recorded. Just say that part again.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, I mean, you look at, we'll never know what Sean Clifford and James Franklin's conversation was. But if there's one guy that I could see for the good of the program him going into Franklin's office and saying, well, I think it's time for Aller I think he's ready, and we're not playing for a national championship. I had my last chance against Ohio State and came up short. It's time to give the reins over to him. I could kind of see Clifford doing that. Or it could be, on the other hand, Clifford trying to keep his job, which I could also see because these guys are competitors. And when you're a D1 quarterback, you're going to compete. Like, that's just your DNA. That's your DNA to get to Penn State. And then to get the job at Penn State, beating out Will Levis, who I know he's Will Levis, but he's gonna be a first-round draft pick. Beating him out, beating Tommy Stevens out, yeah, you're a competitor. You've beaten guys out for the job before. So I don't think you're going to relinquish that job easily. Could I see him do it? Yes, but I could also see him trying to keep the job. And I want to say this, too, about what I said about the offensive line. If it's the same concept as the quarterbacks, if the coaching staff feels good enough to start 3 backups on the offensive line, if they think the depth is that good to be able to handle Indiana, then I'm fine with Aller starting. We know they consider Norzad and Effner essentially starters, that they've kind of said that before. And if they feel good about a guy like a Vega Ione, like a JB Nelson, like a Jimmy Christ, Drew Shelton, if they feel good about if they feel good enough about one of those guys, then by all means. But if you don't, if you think that guy's going to be a turnstile out there, you just don't think he's ready for the big time and being a starter on the Big Ten level, then yeah, I think you got to stick with Cliff. But if you feel good enough about your depth, then sure, start Drew.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. Yeah, let's just move on. I will say this, Sean. Do you feel? I'm like at 99% sure we see Drew Aller on Saturday, right? Like, there's no way he doesn't play some, whether it's a mop-up duty or like it's pretty high up there that he plays. I think the question is whether or not he starts. And again, Franklin's had the chance to say Sean's our starter, and he hasn't said that. Now, that could just be Franklin messing with us. Who knows? But I think that's a good place to end that conversation. We can roll into our predictions now, Sean, and wrap this puppy up. I wanted to go back and see what we had as far as predictions go. I had one special teams or defensive touchdown, and I think, honestly, I was right. It just was the wrong team. I think Penn State needed one of those to win, honestly, in hindsight. So didn't get it. I said Jake Pinniger was going to kick a 45-yard game-winning field goal. He didn't do that, but he did kick a 44-yard field goal. So I'm giving myself like an eighth of a point for that. Sean, I did not write down your bold prediction. I'm sorry.
What did I say?
While you're thinking,
I forget what I said.
I did too, to be honest with you. If Penn State would have won this game 31-30, and I got the score prediction right, you would have heard about it every single episode for the rest of the year. I would have just mentioned at the beginning of the show, hey, remember that one time I called the Ohio State-Penn State game exactly right? You're probably, honestly, why Penn State didn't win 31-30 is because they knew that the world did not need to hear me say that over and over. But I totally would have. I mean, I would have been all over that. So
you were all over during the game.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. I was salivating. I mean, I was like, holy crap, it's 31-30. I didn't even it was 30 to 24. And it wasn't until the field goal was made I was like, huh. But then obviously it didn't matter. So, all right, not bold predictions. Prediction time, Sean. I believe I went first last time, so I will scoot it on over to you, and you haven't made one Who's Your Daddy reference yet, by the way. I was waiting for all of those, and they never came.
The episode is still young, Corey. So, okay, we're back at a get-right game, just like we were against Minnesota. And the thing about the Minnesota game is we were still playing for a Big Ten championship going into that game, and we were still playing for a chance to make the college football playoff. Both those dreams have sadly died. But it's still a get-right game to try to make a New Year's Six Bowl, to try to win 10 games. And New Year's Six Bowl, I think, is a great consolation. And I would be thrilled with 10 games. I predicted 9. But if we get to 10, it's a pretty damn good season. And I think most fans in the country would be happy with that. Look at what Sammy just said to us. Indiana never won 10 games. And they've been a pretty solid program for the last 10 years. And they never got – it's hard to win 10 games. So I'd be happy with it. I mean, are you going to be disappointed? Sure, because we could have won the Ohio State game, but still, I'd be overall happy with it. So knowing that, we have Indiana. We're playing out in Bloomington. I'm expecting a little bit of a struggle in this one. I think Penn State gets out to a sluggish start. The weather's not going to be great. And I could see a tie game at halftime. Maybe that's my bold prediction. Maybe I'll go with that as my bold prediction. It's a tie game at halftime. But I think eventually the talent takes over. And Penn State ends up winning this one. I have Penn State 31-10 or 31-13. I'll give Indiana another field goal. So I think in the second half, they end up clicking. I do think Aller starts. I think you could see some struggles early, some growing pains early, could throw an interception. But I think eventually the talent takes over and Penn State ends up winning this one rather comfortably. They do cover the spread. So for all you bettors out there, I'd still take Penn State, but I think you're going to be sweating a little bit at halftime.
So you said all that stuff about how Indiana, how it's going to be a close game, and then you go 31-13 with your final. If it wasn't raining, Sean, how many more points do you give Penn State? I'm just curious.
7.
Okay.
Honestly, I was going to go 28-13, but I had to make it a tie game at halftime, so I gave us another field goal.
Gotcha. Okay. I just want to say Cowboy Ribeye comes out of nowhere on YouTube and goes, Indiana is god-awful. Just out of nowhere. Just thought that was funny.
So is Northwestern. But
Sure.
yeah, they are pretty bad.
Yeah, so again, prediction time, right? So Indiana's very not good. Very not good. Yeah, they're just not. 35-22, I think they beat Idaho. Idaho is a very, very bad team. And when Indiana's at their worst, they are very bad. And I don't know what they're going to be. Tom Allen gets his team up. I get all that. Played Michigan tough. I get all that. I'm not nearly as worried as far as the letdown affecting Penn State. I think they showed it enough against Minnesota where I don't think that's an issue. I also don't think Indiana's defense is good enough to really provide a spark to get the Hoosiers really believing. So because of the run game that they now have and the fact that they've done it before, I'm not too worried about the letdown. On top of that, I think there's going to be a spark and a reason to be engaged, and that is because I do think Drew Aller starts on Saturday. I just really do. I'm not a James Franklin expert, and he could just be messing with us, but I just think it's happening. I think the phrase that I keep going back to is when he acknowledged that you want to get better and prepare for next year while going 1-0 at the same time. And he said if you can do it at the same time, obviously that's the best case scenario. And to me, that just, I don't know why, but I just keep going back to that. And I think Drew Aller starts. And even if he doesn't, my bold prediction is that he has a touchdown pass in this game. Because of the weather, I'm going to take off 3 points. I'm going to go 35-14 Penn State wins. I don't think it's close, but I don't think it's a game where you feel amazing about it. Like, I think it could be 14-0 super easily and be like 14-7 at half or 17-7 at half. And Penn State scores another 2 touchdowns or maybe another 3 touchdowns, but they're not going to like be in a frenzy. Like, I think it could just be a touchdown here, then a touchdown here, or maybe a field goal, and then just a touchdown at the end of the game. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, we creamed them. It's still going to feel weird, but they're going to get the job done. I think most of that's related to the weather. My biggest concern really is the weather. Are the running backs going to be able to hold on to the football? Because they're going to be asked to run the football, and they're going to need to be able to do it. But otherwise, I think they're going to be fine. And I think if you're trying to find a reason to get motivation and get your team engaged, starting a new quarterback, I think, provides that spark. But I think it's bigger than that. I think Franklin knows kind of where everything's at. And most importantly, I think Sean Clifford knows where everything's at. So I'm going to go 35-14. I was going to go 41-17 before the rain. I think there's a little bit less points on the board. Maybe a short field for Indiana, gets them in the end zone. And honestly, maybe it's a touchdown and a 2-point conversion and 2 field goals. Like, I don't even know if they're able to score 2 touchdowns, even if they get in the red zone where they struggle. So, yeah, 35-14, Penn State beats Indiana this weekend.
I'll take it. And if that happens, we'll be saying, who's your daddy?
That was terrible. That wasn't very good. Let me, record it one more time. So just for everyone at home on the Twitter, although I haven't really been using this very much lately, but for everybody on Twitter doing your predictions, again, can't predict what someone else has predicted. Have to be following us. If someone gets the score correctly, we're sending you a sticker. Bill went 28-14. Sammy from Hoosier Huddle said Penn State covers, but we did not get a score. Sean, 31-13, and Corey, 35-14.
Yeah, so we're all picking Penn State to cover in this one. So, wait,
maybe I should.
Did Bill?
I guess Bill did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 3 of the 4 of us are picking Penn State to cover. So
maybe we should throw some cash on that.
I mean, I'm down.
Maybe we should throw some cash on it. I'm feeling better about it, to be honest with you. I don't have a reason why, but I'm feeling better about it. And
gambling issue, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. I mean, it's been crazy the last couple months, but Twitter especially. If we miss something you've tweeted us, this isn't like a popularity kind of like, we're not trying to brag or anything, but it is actually hard to see all of the mentions, especially on game day. Like, things happen so fast, and especially when Sean Clifford is struggling, everyone is tweeting at us like, oh, you see what your boy Sean Clifford is? So, like, there was, like, so many tweets coming in on Saturday. We appreciate all of them. And I would say we probably read and respond to, like, 95% of them. But I know some slip through the cracks, especially, like, if Sean's looking at the account and I'm looking at the account, the notifications don't show up twice for both of us. So if one of us looks at the notifications and decides not to reply and someone else is going to, or whatever the case may be, we just miss it. And that's just the nature of the beast. But we appreciate all the love, and sorry if we missed something in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, during games, I mean, we are getting hundreds of mentions in 10 minutes. Like, honestly, it's that many. Especially when if Clifford throws in an interception, it's, oh, you still standing by your guy. And, I mean, I guess that's Twitter for you. But it's a lot of fun. I love covering the games on Twitter. I think it's great interacting with our fans. And, hey, that's the nature of the beast, guys. We got into this. We knew we'd be getting a lot of attention, both positive and negative, and it's fine with us because I like engaging with people. I like talking to people. So,
yeah,
keep sending them our way, good and bad.
Yeah, I'd say 90% of people have been super positive, even with their criticism. So we
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And there's a couple of bad apples, but we don't tolerate those people. A couple of them apologized and said that they're just super drunk. So we get that. Sometimes bad things happen, but we just be nice to each other. There's no reason to be mean to each other. And it's not really sometimes at us. Like, people are mean to each other for no reasons. Like, let's just be nice and talk Penn State football nicely. A lot of love on the Twitter breakdown, the film breakdown. So I really appreciate that. Again, I'm not an expert on things, but it's nice to see that people are seeing similar things that I am. So I appreciate that, because it does take about 2 hours of my time. So it's nice to get some positive feedback on that. So thank you guys for that. If you made it this far in the pod, thank you, Sean. If you made it this far in the podcast, please consider, if you haven't already, following and subscribing. Drop us a 5-star review. We'll read it on the show, and we'll send you a sticker. We do not send stickers for people that do not give us 5 stars. Just saying. And we appreciate it. I think we're at 87 now. So, again, we're trying to get to 100. We're almost there. We will see you Sunday. Sean, I need to talk to you about timing on Sunday, but we'll figure that out. But we'll be back Sunday to discuss, hopefully, a Penn State victory. Penn State trying to get to 7 wins on the year. And we'll talk soon, everybody. So thank you so much. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you like the video. We really appreciate it. Sean, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, like I said, get right game this week. Got to get back on the winning, back in the win column, and heck, we might have a new quarterback to talk about for the first time in a long time. So that's exciting. So we'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, sir. Well, for Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoki. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. See you next time, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.